There's only 24 hours in a day. I got a pair of earbuds and I wish there was a way that I could know just what I want to listen to. There's 150,000 shows that I'm not sitting through. When the world is dark and boring, let us do your exploring. Pod on pod. Pod on pod.
Welcome to Pod on Pod, a guide to the world of podcasts because it's not your daddy's radio. We're your hosts.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joel. This week on Pod, we are late again.
I'm blaming the weather this time.
You can totally blame the weather. You can blame me if you want to. Truth be told, last night I just forgot. I got so busy.
When I'm not blaming the weather, I'm always blaming you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair enough then. You don't want to hear our excuses, though. You just want to hear our podcast reviews, and so that's what we're going to try to get to. Every week here on Pod, we review a different podcast for you, trying to help you find your next favorite show, so you don't have to look quite so hard. This week, it's another listener-submitted show. It's called No Such Thing as a Fish.
It's true.
It is true. It is true. Just look in the Oxford Dictionary. Right there it says it. No such thing as a fish. This show was suggested by a couple of different people. Joel Harris, especially. He previously had requested Bizarre States. Greg Shelton was another one that suggested this show. And boy, am I glad they did.
Yeah. This show, what I like about doing this show, and this is for completely selfish reasons, I guess, is it forces me to get outside of the box that I normally wouldn't and give shows I would guarantee you I would never have found the show, ever.
No. How would you have stumbled upon it?
Yeah, would have never found it, and it's so delightful.
So No Such Thing as a Fish. It's the audio podcast done by the British QI team. This comes from Greg Shelton. He says, in my opinion, it's brilliant. The four hosts each present their most interesting fact of the week, which leads to each host relating tangential facts. It's a great brain food, and they are amazingly quick-witted. Thanks again for being so responsive and for the great podcast. That actually came from the other Joel. That comes from Joel Harris, not from Greg Shelton. Greg, though, says, I have a podcast to recommend to you with a distinctly British flavor. Note the U in the word flavor. As you guys seem to enjoy our humor and thick accents, try No Such Thing as a Fish, which is a typical podcast in that the title says nothing about the content. In short, the three, or is it four experts? It's four experts most of the time.
Yeah.
Yes. They each present
sometimes five.
Yeah, they each present a barely known but super interesting fact from science, history, religion, geography, etc., which leads to more facts and quotes as the others add their knowledge to the very lighthearted discussions. It's a very funny show, but also founded on verifiable sources, as the experts are also the researchers for a general knowledge-based comedy quiz show, which airs on UK television named QI, or Quite Interesting. Had you ever heard of that show?
I've never even heard of it, no.
Me neither.
Never heard of
it. QI
I want to watch it now.
Yeah, indeed. QI is very original in that the host poses a general knowledge question to which the most obvious answer is always wrong and turns out to be merely an urban myth. The panelists then discuss the truth behind the story, which is always more interesting than the legend. The podcast simply removes the quiz format and heads straight for the info, but it's never stuffy and overloaded, but strangely interesting and very amusing. Boy, Greg, I don't know that we need to review it. You wrapped it all up there in a...
Yeah, both of those, I completely agree with both of those synopses.
So let's talk about this
Synopsi.
show.
I don't know the plural for synopsis.
Synopsi, I think, is just because it's fun to say. Let's get into this show specifically. Here on Pod, we break a show down by talking about audio quality, host likability, the content itself, production values, and then we give you some of our favorite moments. We maybe even make an elevator pitch for the show, and then we rate it overall by talking about earbuds. We don't give thumbs up. We don't talk about stars here. We do earbuds in on Pod. First of all, we've sort of already covered content with those listeners submitted suggestions or descriptions of the show, but that's a pretty apt description. You get 4 or 5 facts per show from each of the hosts. They have one fact. And the way I sort of pitched it to you, it's like Word Rango, but with facts instead of words. Each of the hosts brings their own fact, and I think while there's not a strict competition in the show, there is sort of the one-upsmanship of who had the best fact of the week idea.
Okay, I will give that the concepts can be similar.
The formats are sort of similar.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
My appreciation of both shows isn't.
Could not be more disparate, huh?
I binged on this show, and it did not give me an earache.
I think I listened to, at one point, 3 in a row, which I hardly ever do anymore.
I think I've listened to 20.
You listened to 20 episodes?
Like, no joke, yeah. Not in a row.
Right.
But I had to take a couple of trips, and they're only 30 minutes, 40 minutes long.
Yes. So
and
they're
so
easy
I just
to
kept them going. Rachel was with me. She loves them.
So that's the general content. Let's move on to audio quality for this show. Now, this is the one knock I think you could have against it. It's a bit fuzzy. I think they're mostly in the same location, but whenever you have 4 or 5 different people all in the same room, it's hard to get a clear recording, I think.
I think out of podcasts that we've reviewed that have had 3 or more hosts, this one does a pretty solid job. Like, they edit it like it's obvious that it's edited, which is good. And I think they I think that they do a good job of editing out a lot of the issues.
Yes, and a lot of the nonsense. As when you have that many people in a room, like, the conversation goes astray a lot, and they like a little rambling, but they also like a tight show, and so they do a great job of having both of those things at once. You feel like the show is free flowing and yet not rambling.
Yes, 100% agree.
All right, so let's get into host likability then. Andrew Hunter Murray, James
Andy Murray.
That's right, James Harkin, Alex Edelman, and Dan Schreiber, and then Anna. And I'm not going to get her last name right, so I'm just going to say that it's Paznitsky.
Works for me.
Very wrong. Anyway, I'm sorry, Anna. We'll have links for all of those folks on Twitter in our show notes for this episode, so you can follow them if you'd like to and hear from them. They're all pretty funny in their own right. Did you have a favorite host? That many people, it's hard to develop. Even with several episodes, it's hard to develop a lot of...
It's always hard whenever you get more than one host. It generally takes me several episodes to start distinguishing who's who. Mm-hmm. It is even harder for me to do it with anyone with an accent.
Yes, I'll say this. Anna stuck out since they made
the
fun of her a lot.
voice.
That's right, as the female voice. Also, she's not actually on Twitter. She tweets through one of the QI accounts, and so they occasionally ring her up for that as well, for not being on Twitter. But I liked all of them. They were all super likable. There's not a jerk on this show, as there is on many shows, not even somebody who sort of plays a jerk on the podcast.
Well, and if they lean to anything, it's being self-deprecating.
Yes, yeah, but, which I think, I don't know, maybe that's a British thing, but it's one of the things that I like so much about this podcast.
You find it endearing.
Yes, very much so. Production values. So what they do as they edit the show, they put just a little snippet of the theme song in to sort of break those moments in between topics of discussion or moving from fact to fact throughout the show. Other than that, there's really not much to it. There's not a whole lot of sounders or sound effects or anything.
Which makes it an amazingly simple show.
Yeah, I really do appreciate anytime you're going to have a show where the conversation is significantly edited or truncated. Hey, we're closing that off and moving to a different thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's almost required to have some sort of production value of something so that you know, hey, okay, new conversation or new area of discussion. Don't feel like you have to bridge the topics here from one to the other.
Well, what I found, here's the reason I'm okay with it for this show, because it can be a little jarring. But like Greg mentioned, one person will bring a fact, so it'll be Andy's fact, right? And let's say Andy's fact is that Grover Cleveland, for the last 72 hours or however long it was of his life, was fed through his anus, right?
Oh my God! I didn't hear that one. I guess that's
he was shot.
Fact.
That was one of them. Yeah, he was shot, and all the doctors kept digging around in his guts to try to find the bullet and couldn't. In fact, Alexander Graham Bell was inventing a metal detector, and they brought him in to try to find the bullet, but he was laying on a bed with metal springs, so it didn't work.
Wow.
Right? But because of all their meddling, he ended up going septic and couldn't eat. So they fed him through the anus, which doesn't really work, right? So there's the fact. Now, every other host gets to tack on a tangential fact to that. And there's two ways they can go about it, or there's a couple of ways they can go about it, which always is one of my favorite parts. Either they'll give another fact about Grover Cleveland, like he could write in Latin with his right hand while writing in Greek in his left hand, and he campaigned in German.
Oh, that's an amazing series of facts.
Right? Or it could be a weird medical fact, right?
Yes, a similar procedure. Well, around that same time, they were also taking, monkey bladders and trying to trade them out for human bladders or something.
Right. So it's always something like you never know you never know which vein the other hosts are going to take. So it's kind of always a delightful surprise.
I think that could be the theme for the whole show. It's kind of always a delightful surprise.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And they are so witty and so quick. It's amazing.
So other than Grover Cleveland's intestines, did you have a favorite moment that you'd like to mention?
I can't remember. It may be James. But one of them will often try to bring Yetis into it. So it doesn't matter what the topic is. And somebody called him out. They're like, do you just take the topic? Do you just take the fact and then just Google that fact plus Yeti to try to find something? Because the way that I think that it works, and I could be wrong, but from listening to all the episodes is everyone submits their fact at the beginning of the week so that all the other hosts have time to do a little research around that fact and find whatever it is that is interesting to them, and they bring it. So they have a couple of days
Makes absolute
to do
sense.
research.
My favorite moment was they were talking about different scientists' plan to solve basically all of the world's problems. And the one in particular that stuck out to me was there was this mathematician and physicist who, for most of his adult life and career, was a proponent of the idea that we could solve all of the world's ills by blowing up the moon.
Yeah. Except that the tides wouldn't work. And
Yeah, well, that's what they said.
Yeah.
And there would be tides. They would just be, so high tide would be at noon, low tide would be at midnight, every day, always. There were lots of other reasons why that wouldn't work. Mostly the fact that the moon would mostly fall to Earth and end up as meteorites and asteroids and destroy us all. So that would be a bad thing. But that was probably my favorite overall discussion. That discussion led to, as again, you get tangential facts. Other ways people are thinking of saving the planet. Greenland has a plan to cover the whole country in a blanket to save their
ice caps from melting.
Exactly. And apparently it could work. It's just too expensive for the whole country to be covered in a blanket.
No, it is. I really wish I could remember this listener's name because he's pretty fantastic. It's our listener that's like in his 60s.
I know who you're talking about. I could probably try to find him on Twitter, maybe.
Anyway, he mentioned if you love being entertained and love learning, that podcasts are a great way to do it. And I think that's very apropos to this one in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very much so. So let's go on then and rate the show overall. As I said on Pod, we don't give thumbs up. We don't give stars. The way that we rate shows is with earbuds in. How many earbuds are you going to give No Such Thing as a
2.
Fish? Yeah, it's
I
got to
don't
be
even have
2.
to think about it. It's 2.
It's absolutely got to be 2. We loved this show. I can't tell you enough to go and check it out. And where can you check it out? We'll have links in our show notes, but you can find them at qi.com/podcast, qi.com/podcast. But you can also find them in iTunes or on SoundCloud and Stitcher. Just search for No Such Thing as a Fish with the QI Elves. It is a lot of fun, absolutely. You got anything else to add on this show, Josh?
Well, just most importantly, this show has earned my review. So I'm going to go review them, and I'm going to give them a great review because they deserve it. And if you were inspired to listen to No Such Thing as a Fix, there's definitely a thing as a fix.
Yes.
Ask the White Sox. If this has inspired you to go and check out No Such Thing as a Fish, which I highly recommend, and you enjoy it, the best way to show them that you enjoy it is to please go and give them a review.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. What we didn't do on this episode, Josh, is give our elevator pitch. I'll give you mine real quick. Here's what would happen if the people who write The Daily Show read the Jeopardy answers to you on a podcast. They're very funny guys, so it's comedians, but they're giving you genuine facts that you can drop during a dinner party or something that'll make somebody turn their head and go, exactly. Yeah. I mean, honestly, did you know before that Grover Cleveland was fed for the last months of his life or weeks of his life through his anus?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I love the presidents. I watch and read about all of them. They're fantastic. But what I didn't know were the types of food that they tried, and then why they stopped feeding him some food. So, for example, egg yolks. They tried to feed him egg yolks through his anus. and they stopped doing it because the flatulence was so horrible that the doctors didn't want to be around it. And it's kind of like, he's dying and you don't want to be around his smelly farts. Like, that's an amazing reason to stop trying to save someone.
Oh, my goodness. So there you go, folks. It's our review from Pod on Pod of No Such Thing as a Fish, a wholehearted recommendation. I don't think very few shows have gotten a 2.0 from both of us there. Let's get to a little listener feedback before we wrap up this week, Josh.
Ooh.
This comes from Travis Langley. He's the producer and representative for The Last Gentleman, which we reviewed a while back. He asks, do we have a policy about reviewing paid subscription podcasts? For example, I know the Anthony Cumia show or Artie Lang show, you have to pay a few bucks a month to listen. So I was curious if you guys got enough demand, would you review something like this? We had Anthony on our show a few weekends ago, so we all paid for his show to listen to the content. I'm surprisingly enjoying it. It's definitely worth checking out. Thanks, Travis Langley, producer and representative. Do you subscribe to any shows? Do you pay for any podcast subscriptions?
I have paid to get the backlog of WTF.
I have paid. I'm not an ongoing subscriber, but I have paid a couple of months at different times to access that back catalog of WTF. I have considered. I have not purchased it yet, but I've considered going through like the Bandcamp of the Weekly Planet. They do some audio movie commentaries on there, and they're sort of behind a paywall. You don't have to pay anything, or you can pay very little. But I've thought about throwing them a few bucks.
I have also paid for every single Tell 'em Steve Dave Christmas special.
Yeah, so all of their items to be paid for, you've gotten those too.
Yeah.
I guess we're not opposed to it in general. Here's the thing for Pod on Pod.
I don't think it fits what we're trying to do.
Yes. Our goal week to week, and the only reason we will review a show is if we feel like some portion of our audience or potential audience would be very excited to hear that. And since our audience is smaller than a lot of shows, that some proportion is small to begin with, the number of people that would listen to our show that are theoretically kind of new to podcasting, that would want to go right in and pay for a show where they couldn't have access to the content at all without paying, I think is almost non-existent. So for that reason, we're probably not going to review something like that on our show. But in general, we're not opposed to subscriptions for podcasts. And I think it's a great idea as another monetization tool for a show with a long back catalog.
Yeah, I am never against a podcaster trying to get paid. Ever.
No, absolutely. So good question, Travis, and there's our answer for that. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's review. What's on the docket for next week, Josh?
I don't
It's
know.
too many letters. You can't keep up with it. By a vowel. We're going to review
Colon,
2 shows.
That's
right. We're talking about 2 shows next week. We're going to be talking about TLDR and Reply All.
No, TL colon.
It's either colon or semicolon. I think it's semicolon.
Semicolon.
Yes.
Yeah.
TLDR stands for Too Long, Didn't Read. It's a very neat show, sort of a spin-off of a media show from NPR. And now
I already hate it. I haven't listened to a single episode, but I can't tell you how frustratingly angry that title makes me. It is ridiculous. How is anybody supposed to know what your show is? You sent me that and I was like, what does it even mean? You told me what it meant and then told me that's the title. Like if I were to search for it, I have to do TL semicolon DR. It's frustrating.
If you type in TL, I'm pretty sure it will pop up as
I don't give
one
a
of
damn.
the top
It's
suggestions.
stupid, and the people that came up with that, like, I'm sure they're great people. They did not put any thought into this, or they overthought it.
Well, let's see if you feel the same way after you listen to the show. It's a show about the internet, a very cool show. TLDR, the original hosts of that show, they have moved over to Gimlet Media, which we've talked about before, the guys behind the Startup podcast, and they've got a new show called Reply All, sort of a second generation of TLDR. So we're going to be talking about both those shows next week.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure the original host left because he was like, hey, this title's stupid.
We need a new name. Well, they did fix the name on the new show at least. It's an easier name. Reply All, you would agree, is better.
It. Yes,
Yes.
And I can. Oh, Reply All. It's got to be something about internets, or it's got to be something about email or communication. Something. TLDR gives me nothing. It is so hard. How's anybody supposed to find that show?
because we're going to talk about it next week on
We're
Pod
doing
on Pod.
God's work, I tell you, God's work.
That's right. All right. Until then, we've been your hosts.
I'm Josh.
I'm Joel, and this has been the podcast.
Are you wanting something funny? Are you wanting something smart? A show on astral projection or the history of art? Do you want to learn a language or how to play guitar? Just leave it up to Joel and Josh. Pod on Pod. Pod on Pod.
Pod on Pod is a proud member of the Procast Network, a Procreate production. Procreate is a community of artists in film, music, the digital arts, and the fine arts that helps them connect and collaborate on projects. You can find out more at teamprocreate.com. Also, be sure to check out one of our other great shows like Movie Buzzed. The Movie Buzzed podcast is exactly what it sounds like. It's a place for friends to get together, watch a good movie, and catch a good buzz. Every episode, your host Zach will be joined by a special guest or 5 to have some fun. Whether it's pop culture, movie trivia, random rants about politics, or reading comments from astrophysicists, Movie Buzzed is where you'll find your friends and a good buzz waiting for you.
Our musical guest this week is City City.